Hi, my name is Angela Heim, and I'm going to be talking about special education assessment. The first question is define least restrictive environment and discuss this concept as it relates to models of delivery for special services. The least restrictive environment defined by the IDEA 2004 to the maximum extent appropriate. Children with disabilities are educated with children who are non-disabled in special classes, separate schooling, or other removal of children with disabilities from the regular educational environment occurs only when the nature or severity of the disability is such that education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. Okay, so least restrictive environment. Typically in the past, children with special needs were often separated from their peers into a different classroom, and that's basically where they would remain all day. It's not like that today. The goal of least restrictive environment is for the child to who participates in special education, to be included in the classroom, the general classroom with their peers as much as possible. So it is important to know that even least restrictive environment has the word environment in there. It makes it sound like a place, but it's actually more of a concept or a guide when it comes to a child's IEP. So when the IEP team is creating the IEP, they come up with a program that's tailored to that student and their specific needs. So their least restrictive environment isn't a one-size-fits-all just according to their disability. It's individualized to best meet the needs of that student. And their specific needs and disability also determine the kind of level of least restrictive environment. Okay. But the different needs mean different levels of LRE. And here's just a few ways that it can vary from students and how it can relate to the models of delivery. The general education classroom with support. The special education student will generally stay in the mainstream classroom, but they might get support from the para, or the teacher will just use the modified curriculum for them. There might be some special accommodations like assistive technology and other services. So generally, who is working with the student at this time is mostly the teacher and maybe like a teacher's assistant. Partial mainstream inclusion classroom, the student will spend part of the day in the general classroom, but they'll also get instruction in the special education classroom, or they may be pulled for special education services. So the teacher, the para, the special education teacher, maybe a speech pathologist are all going to be working with the student in this scenario. The special education classroom. The special education it's a program created for students who have specific and individualized needs where they can get the appropriate support. So they would mostly be in the special education classroom with the special education teacher. And there's also, move myself out of the way, specialized program outside of school district. There are special programs that aren't just specific to the school. It might be specialized program in private schools, might be in hospitals or community programs, residential programs, those type of things. Question 2, why is the assessment process described as a cycle, and what are the components of the special education assessment process? An IEP is a continuous process. Once a student's IEP is created and implemented, a teacher and the other professionals will still continue to make decisions based on the data they've collected and the student's needs. So the teacher will continually regularly to collect data, mostly through, you might do it through informal means like observation or work samples, things like that, to see if the IEP is working and if the student is showing progress. So the IEP may call for the teacher to make certain modifications to the instruction to help the student in their learning process. Then the teacher will monitor and record the student, how the student reacts to that modified instruction. And based on that teacher's assessment, that student may need more modifications or interventions that may need to take place, so that IEP may need to change a little bit. This is described as a cycle because the process of monitoring, collecting data, changes to the instruction, it's ongoing. The student's IEP is not something that is set in stone, that can't be changed. It's not something that, you know, they write down and that's what it's going to be that whole entire year. It can change based on the student's progress, the needs, and their disabilities. Steps in education assessment. Okay, so identification and referral. There is a screening process that takes place and the teacher's identification of students with school problems. It usually encompasses the largest number of students. The screening procedures gather information about students to see who might need to be assessed. There is also pre-referral intervention strategies where the teachers make modifications to their instructional programs to see if they can improve student performance based on modifications or other types of assistance. There's also a referral and notification of parents. If progress isn't being made by the pre-referral strategies, then an official referral is made and parents are contacted to let them know. Determination of eligibility. There is a design of individualized assessment plan, or an IAP. It's a process that states why the student is being referred. It focuses on educational needs and student information to help make decisions. There's a parental permission for assessment. Parents are informed and ask for consent to have their child proceed with the assessment. There is an administration, scoring, interpretation of assessment procedures, which provides procedures for and guidelines for manuals for the assessment process and how they're to be scored. Reporting results. Results are given during an evaluation team meeting with the parents. And there's also decisions about eligibility. So after the results are given, decisions need to be made about whether the student has a possible disability, and they need to make decisions about what they should do about if they see the school performance, the student's school performance isn't improving. Sorry. Program planning. There is a design of the individualized education program, an IEP. It's made by an IEP team, which includes parents, teachers, and other professionals. They need to make decisions about the student's educational program that is based off of the available data that they've collected. There are certain IEP guidelines that must be followed according to federal law. There's also a parental agreement to the IEP. Once again, parents are contacted and need to give their consent to the IEP before the student can use that. Program implementation and evaluation. There's the implementation of the IEP. So once a program is, the parents have given consent for the program to go forward, the IEP is implemented as soon as possible. There's ongoing monitoring of student progress. Usually the teacher will monitor student progress through informal means like observation, work samples, criterion reference tests. There's an annual review of the IEP, which it's reviewed on an annual basis. And they evaluate student progress and check out the data to decide whether adjustments need to be made to the annual goals. There's a periodic reevaluation of eligibility, where they review the eligibility. The review was made every 3 years to determine whether the student still requires special education services. And the review is made by the IEP team, where they go over data and maybe a possible assessment again. Okay, question 3. Describe at least 5 strategies a professional can use to encourage family participation in the special education assessment process. Okay. One of them I had is sensitivity to different cultures and socioeconomic status. It's important to be really sensitive about how different families converse with their child, and how a professional should converse with that family. It might be important to talk really casually to certain families in a really easy to understand manner, where we don't project that we're a professional and that we're using language that they're not going to understand. Maybe find a place where they're most comfortable meeting. Maybe some lower income families aren't comfortable with anybody coming over to their house. So obviously you would want to set up the meeting in a different environment. The textbook also just suggested a bilingual, bicultural, sociocultural mediator for certain situations, so you can effectively communicate with the family members. And you also want, when it comes to paperwork, you might think about using the family's preferred language, print out paperwork in their language that they can understand, and learn about a student's background to ensure that you're respecting their family's culture, ethnicity, language. So you might need to just do some research on your own. And one of the most important things is to maintain a respectful and unbiased attitude. You want to come across as friendly and accepting, because this is about the student. This is not about your own biased opinion. Effective communication. Listening is one of the most important aspects when it comes to what we can do as a professional to have successful parent participation. We need to be able to have those parents feel like they're being heard, that they have a voice, that they can voice any kind of concerns that they have, that so we can easily get information from them, or they can help make decisions. We can do effective communication face-to-face. There's lots of different ways: face-to-face, email, text messaging. You can write a note to students. And it's important to communicate on a regular basis. Talk to the parents, see what would be an appropriate amount of time to maybe update their student. Maybe that's weekly, maybe that's bi-weekly, maybe every week you want to shoot them an email just to let them know how their student is doing and progressing, if you have any questions. I know that one teacher had a Facebook group that she had all the parents in, but this could be for just between you and the special education student's family. You could let them know of any upcoming meetings. Maybe you want to send pictures, maybe you want to ask questions, just have that kind of open dialogue. And with friendly atmosphere, you want to be able to be approachable. You know, when the parents come into the room, you immediately want to welcome them and engage them in conversation. And I always think it's good to not just come across as super professional in my questions. Maybe I'll ask them more personal questions like, how are you doing? How are things going? How is so-and-so? How are you feeling lately? How have things been at home? You know, those kinds of things. It just makes that relationship feel not so professional. It makes them feel like you really care about who they are and who that family is. Make sure to give parents an opportunity to speak and engage in conversation. So I'm not just sitting there talking at them. Make sure I'm pausing and asking questions. You know, do you have anything to add? Do you have anything you want to say? And even creating an atmosphere, like putting up posters or signs on the wall that display family friendliness, just to make sure that the environment is encouraging families to be involved. Develop trust. This is a really important strategy for parent participation. They want to feel like they can trust you, and letting them know that you will ensure to keep privacy in the conversation, that it will stay between you and the parent. To ensure trust, you need to be a dependable person. So I need to make sure that if I am effectively communicating with parents, that when they send me an email or they send me a text, that I promptly reply back to them. Or if they give me a phone call, I need to make sure that I call them right back if I miss their phone call. And when I speak to them, I need to be able to speak honestly and allow parents to do the same. And that will also ensure trust. And the textbook brought up this one, I thought it was really good. Being knowledgeable. When parents feel like you are knowledgeable in your field or you're fully qualified at your job, they're going to feel a lot more confident and secure that you're teaching their child. So professionals should continue to further education, whether that be explore taking another college class or a class online, or maybe do your own research through books, through journals, through websites, those sorts of things. You're just constantly learning. Next question. Compare and contrast 3 types of derived scores: percentile rank, standard scores, and I hope I'm saying this right, Stanine. Tell how the scores are related to one another and to the normal distribution. Sorry, let me drink real quick. Okay, there are 3 types of derived scores: percentile rank, standard scores, Stanines. First one we're going to talk about is percentile rank. Percentile rank indicates how well a student performed in comparison to the students in the specific norm group. So a student's percentile rank indicates that a student scored as well as, better than, the percent of students in the norm group. It's also helpful for reporting achievement status, but it's not a great measure of comparing 2 students in 2 different norm groups or for calculating a student's growth. So to read a percentile rank, for example, a student scoring in the 25 percentile scored as well or better than 25% of students in the norm group. And then standard scoring. These scores reflect a student's rank compared to others. They indicate how far above or below the mean or average the individual scores fall. It's computed by points earned, the raw score, compared to performances of same age peers from norm groups. So it really compares a person's ability, knowledge, or skill to other similar people. And they're usually organized under a bell curve. Most have a standard score mean of 100. The average is usually in the middle. And most people score near the mean. Stanines. It shows how one student's results compare to others of the same age. It's divided into 9 scores, or standard 9s, which is 0.5 standard deviation in width. The highest is the 9 and the lowest is the 1. And they're not all the same size. So for instance, how to read it, maybe the Stanine 7 through 9 would be the above average group, which is 25%. And maybe between 4 and 6 is average, which might be 50%. And 1 through 5 would be below average, or 25%. So it represents a range of performance rather than a specific score. And it can be helpful to identify students who need a little bit more challenge or maybe need more support. So comparatively, they're all norm reference test scores, and they compare a student's score to that of a wider population of students. In contrast, percentile rank allows more precise description of student performance. And the data the Stanine provides are less precise than those from standard scores. but the most accurate seems to be the standard scoring. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.